All right, guys. So we were going to talk about robotics today. We're not going to be talking robotics because admittedly, I don't know that much about robotics. I'd have to do more research. Yeah, right. My bad. I will. Okay, well, because of Diane's outburst just now, I will be retiring from this position effective immediately. Yeah. Nah.
Did we do something wrong?
No, it's just Diane made me feel so terrible that I don't think I can work here anymore. Yeah, you're right. I promised, blah, 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 blah. How could you, so on and so forth. Yeah, I've heard the whole spiel. Oh, yeah, I did that on accident. Don't worry. You haven't learned even a single thing. This has been the worst thing you've ever done in your entire life. No, that's fine. Okay, well, today I will be discussing, okay, I teach you guys on Mondays and Wednesdays, right? On Saturdays, I teach high schoolers about artificial intelligence. So today's talk is going to be the talk that I deliver to them, like partway through our class. We have like a few classes, so this is like a few sessions in. I tend to deliver this like lecture. So this is about AI in historical video games. Now, to be very clear, what like I should define both of these things first. So we've talked a bit about AI together. So I'm gonna have I want each of you to say just like one thing you think or know about AI. Okay, so when I say AI, what is something you think about, or how would you define it? So what do you guys think? Yeah, it's software. Very good. It's software. So it's not the physical like components, it's the software, it's the brains. Yeah. Okay. What else? What does what
Artificial intelligence.
yeah, right. It program.
How important the people behind the scenes are.
Yeah.
How complicated this all is, and the thought process behind it.
Right.
Algorithms.
Algorithms. Very good. Yeah, algorithms, analytical stuff, very good. It's a bit complicated to produce, that's very good. And over the years, it's evolved. What? It's coding, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's evolved in terms of like accuracy and usefulness over the years. So AI that existed in like the early 2000s has nothing on AI that exists today, right? Yeah, like its applications are vast. Now, can somebody tell me, what does AI allow a computer to do? It allows it to think like a human. It allows it to think adaptively. So the thing that makes us so powerful when we address problems is that we have a tendency for pattern recognition, right? We have an inclination for pattern recognition. So let me ask you guys this. What is the next noise that I would make? Right, so if I go, so you guys were able to hear me do that like 2.5 times, and you knew I was gonna clap. That's pattern recognition. Like you can never escape pattern recognition. It's like the thing that drives our brains forward. Computers, as a base, do not have pattern recognition. They are really powerful calculators. A calculator with massive biceps, right? But a calculator can't necessarily address like patterns. It can't learn something in its environment and then adapt itself to address an issue in its environment. Different AI can do it. So like, for example, Siri, like on your phone, can learn how to better respond to your particular voice. So if I say, hey Siri, okay, she's ignoring me right now, which is kind of funny. I think I did something to piss her off. But over time, Siri learns to understand your voice. So that's an AI thinking adaptive. She's learning the patterns of your own, what do you call that? Dialectics, or it's a dialect. Yeah, she's learning your dialect, your accent, right? And she's learning what you sound like when you say certain words. Another example is something like a little a self-driving car. So self-driving cars are trained to take in any possible situation. So a good self-driving car is able to operate at day, at night, in the city, in the country, with a bunch of people nearby, with nobody nearby at all, when it's raining, when it's snowing, when weather is clear, and any combination of all of these things, right? A self-driving car can't be designed to only work on a clear blue day with nobody around. It has to be able to adapt, right? That kind of thing is AI. Imbuing a computer with the ability to think on the fly and learn, right? That's what AI is, artificial intelligence, right? So that's the first thing I had to address. So AI also can be used in, and this actually has a segue to what I'm going to be talking about. If you play like chess on your computer, you can play against the computer, right? So you don't have to play against, like, if you play chess on your computer, you don't have to play against a human. You can also play against like a computer. And something in my mouth. It's like a popcorn kernel. Anyways, you don't have to play against a human, you can play against a computer. There, depending on what level of difficulty you put the computer will do a worse or better job learning how you play and countering against you, right? So computers can also be used in video games, like chess or stuff like that. So that brings me to the second definition that I have to use, which is historical video game. So I'm going to be showing you some examples, but a historical video game is basically just a video game. You guys know what video games are, right? Okay.
So what is, okay, for instance, our video, okay, historical video, is that considered like Pac-Man back in the day?
Great question. Great question. So
Those that are Atari and like,
yeah. Excellent question. So this is a matter of like, I guess semantics. Here, historical doesn't mean old. Historical means has to do with history. So like these are video games that have something to do with like telling history, right? But that's a good guess. So a video game is just like a computerized game that you can play with a controller or on a computer. So, I mean, like arcades, Yeah, so like those are video games. You go to like a big arcade, they have like a game where you like command a little spaceship using a lever and some buttons. That's a video game. Of course, those are the older video games that exist in arcades. Nowadays, we have video games that you can play on a computer like this that have like beautiful 3D environments and like oh yeah, virtual, like they recreate what like a human face looks like to a T. Totally different. Very, 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 they're like high definition. So video games nowadays are just like games you can play on a computer. That's essentially it. Or on like a console with a controller. So I'm going to be talking about this combination because it turns out AI can be applied to video games that tell stories about history. And I will be telling you guys about that. Now, the reason I'm delivering this talk too is because I love everything involved in the title. So as you guys know, I study computer science. I think AI and machine learning are super interesting. I teach machine learning on weekends to help pay my bills, right? And of course, history. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this from like the intro, like the very first session, but I have another degree in history. I love history. I think it's extremely important. I've always loved history. And so historical video games, so those are like games you can play on your computer that tell stories about human history, I think are super, super cool because they're kind of a combination of my two interests, right? You have somebody coded, that's CS, a game that tells a story about like Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan or whatever. I think that's super cool. So that's what this talk is about. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Does the computer or that particular game or does it kind of store your rules and whatnot? Does it kind of identify you as a player to make you a better player? You know what I'm saying? To
Like it profiles you.
Your rules go less so that you can actually, set up your game to be a better player.
So are you asking if it keeps a record of your moves?
Yes.
Yeah, so it depends. I imagine there are some like modern chess games on the computer where the longer you play, the harder it becomes because the computer will like profile you and figure out like what strategies you like to employ. That's one thing.
Because if you're a master chess player, you want to get better, of course
You want to be, so you can use literally, that's another great application of AI. AI can learn very easily to be as good as, if not better than a master chess player. There was a really famous example. Deep Blue played against a really famous Russian chess player back in the day, maybe like 20, 30 years ago, and kicked his ass. Like it won. And it made the chess player really mad, but a computer beat a human at chess. Also, you had a question?
That was like a lot of
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, exactly the same.
Jennings, and Jennings was at the top of his game.
Yeah, yeah.
And Watson went up against two human beings that were like totally.
Supposed to be like the best of the best.
Right.
Yep. Excellent example. Yeah, Watson. That's another example. So Watson. Well, Watson. I mean, are you guys connected to RPI somehow? That was you. Yeah, you told me about this.
At the Rensselaer Institute of Technology. My daughter went there.
Yeah, it's like it's on upstate.
After Jeopardy, Watson was sent to RPI to set up his game or her game in that. No.
No, because there's things better than Watson, But yeah, so Watson beat up Jeopardy players. Deep Blue won a chess game against like a world famous chess player. That's an excellent example. So those kinds of technologies you can also employ in games on a computer, which makes a lot of sense. There you don't even need to build like the physical box for Deep Blue or Watson or whatever. It just exists as software in a machine.
Can I just make a statement?
Yeah, sure.
The only thing that fears me with this AI thing is that if Watson is able to beat two human beings, can you imagine some evil, I'm thinking about how these movies that they make,
Yeah,
control the world, this, that. Can you imagine if somebody really comes up with something to like really take control of the whole world?
So
Girl, that evil man. So that's what, because the way that I feel is that at some point in the world, with all this technology, people are not gonna think, we've been talking about this. Your generation, your people are not gonna be able to think, everything is push button.
Huh, yeah, well, I mean, we already kind of see that. I mean, yeah, we already kind of see that, like,
The work that's gonna make that addressing that right now for the young people, because I'm worried about the young people. I'm not gonna be here, girl, they're on their own.
well, okay, so that's a little bit of a tangent, but I do think like I think my I'm not really a millennial, but I'm also not really Gen Z. I'm kind of like a in between, and I have mannerisms of both. But my brother is a Gen Z. He's a member of Gen Z. He's 15, right? And then I know people who are millennials. But both of those generations, you see kind of like at least from my perspective, you see like I actually would argue you see more intelligence because you see like they have easy access to a lot of information. Right. They have easy access to a lot of information. Well, actually a lot of them perform, it's like a tricky situation. It's like a mixed bag. Like you see kids nowadays who are way more you see kids nowadays that are way more like politically minded. They can construct arguments way better. They're more passionate about things in the world. A lot of kids nowadays are very much aware that there are glaring issues in this country that need to be addressed. Yes, yeah, 150%, yeah. Kids nowadays, I mean, they're becoming much more informed because of the internet. But the downside is that a lot of these technologies, that the way they function and the way that they like engage us is similar to like a rat in like a scientific experiment. I'm serious. Like, okay, how do you get a rat to run around in a cage? How do you do it? Cheese or nectar or something like that, right? So we get stimulants, and all of us do, not just me. You guys do too. Where you'll see a little. I'm gonna be very clear. you see a little like this like list of like little buttons. It's like you just got a new notification, you just got a new notification, you just got a, and like all of these. Sorry, I'm trying to get it to recognize my stupid face, and it won't do that, which is funny. But yeah, it's my mustache, right? But you know, all of these, like you'll get a ding, you get little buttons in there. It's exactly like the rat. It's like we get these little stimulants and then they have us do things. Now, the thing that I think personally that has caused my generation, either millennials or Zoomers, I don't know what you want to say, but millennials and Gen Z, is that we kind of have a shorter attention span and are more, we are more inclined to instant gratification. And like, I think that that's a huge problem. I think a lot of people around my age group, kind of like myself included, struggle with not getting things like that. And I know that makes it sound like spoiled children, because a lot of us are, but that kind of idea of like instant gratification becoming how your brain functions, it warps how you're, so that's a whole thing. Now, to address your previous question about AI taking over the world, Deep Blue and Watson, you have to think about different types of intelligence, okay? So you can have like, think of like a computer geek, right? Computer geek, whatever that might look like in your head, they could be really good at computers, but maybe they're like socially inept, you know, like they're terrible at relating to people. No, see, I'm just charming all around. But like, so like a computer geek, like they're really good at computers and they're really smart, but their social intelligence is terrible. You could compare Deep Blue and Watson to that. They have extreme amounts of like, I guess you could say, like encyclopedic knowledge. Like they can, like you ask them what was the capital of Venezuela in 1930, they'll be like, oh, that's easy. Ask the computer, tell the computer that like, I don't know, like your brother-in-law is like sick, and then ask it to like relate to you, and the computer will have no idea what to do. So the emotional intelligence of those things is tiny. So in order for what you described to happen, there would need to be a machine that is both, I don't know what you would call it, like just gifted with intelligence on like facts and stuff like that, but also has the emotional capacity to enact free will, whatever that even means, really. We don't have that yet. We don't have computers that really convey emotion very well. And it's even fuzzy to say, like, when we do get those machines, how will we know that they are conveying emotion? What even is emotion? What would be genuine emotion? If you have a computer that is trained to feel things, is it really feeling something, or is it just fake? So that's a good question to ask. It's a little insane, right? Yeah.
There is a Netflix series, I forgot the name of it, but it's about this society that has robotic like housekeepers and people to take care, nannies to take care of children. But there's this one robotic, one female robot that actually is beginning to feel feelings because she's becoming very protective of the family. Anybody that wants to harm the family, she goes after them.
Huh.
So it's a really interesting series. I forgot the name of it. But yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's cool though. I mean, we don't have that kind of technology today. Not yet. A lot of top thinkers have also said that this is a big threat, or that it's like something that needs to be addressed. Like
I think so.
yeah, Stephen Hawking, before he passed, said that this is like he said something really dramatic, like this is the greatest threat to humanity.
I think so.
I'm gonna just not worry about it. That's gonna be my take. Anyways, okay. So I told you guys about the fact that I really love history. And this is because when I was a kid, my parents bought me a bunch of atlases. So first I snuck into my dad's like art studio and I stole an atlas from him. And I just looked at it and I love maps. I really love looking at maps. I think they're very cool. I love like wondering like these different geographical areas and like the political entities that exist there. I love wondering how they came to be. You know, I think that history and political science are just super, super interesting, you know? And so I played a few games as a kid that kind of really like locked in my love for history. So this is, I think, something that's kind of unique to my generation, you know, that the millennials and Gen Zs, right? Is that I kind of grew up understanding how to use a computer. And I mean, that ended up developing into me like studying them. But I remember when I was like 8 years old, my But it was my 8th birthday, and my uncle, my mom's brother, gave me a video game. Like he bought me a video game as a present. And this game was called Civilization. It was called Civilization 3, actually. It was in a series. And this is what, oh, well, this is the guy that made them. This is the guy that made Civilization. His name is Sid Meier. He's a really cool guy. But let's see. This is what the game looks like. So let's go ahead and take a look at this together. The point of the game is you play as a country, or you can play as like the leader of a country, and you have to like help your country grow and develop into the most successful country on the map. So if you guys have ever played like Risk, it's a bit like that, except not as inclined to warfare. Okay, well, so basically the game is like an electronic simulation of, it's supposed to be like kind of like human history. So you play as a country. A person in the picture is playing as France, actually. And you play throughout the ages. So you start on a randomly generated world. So it's not Earth, but it's something kind of like Earth. You start alongside a whole bunch of other civilizations. So maybe you start as France, and then the computer will put down like Japan, England, Russia, Spain, United States, like whatever. Like they'll put a bunch of other civilizations nearby. And then you guys will compete for resources. You might wage war. You might trade with one another. Like you'll compete for cultural significance. And there are different ways to win the game. So you can win the game by becoming the first to send a rocket ship to the moon. So you can be really good with technology. You can win the game by just conquering everybody else. You can win the game by having the most citizens. So you're the most like populous and like prosperous country in the world. But there are different ways to win the game that aren't just like kill everybody else. And you can just kill everybody else. But yeah, so you start in the ancient world, and then you move into medieval history, and then you move into like industrial, then you move into industrial history, and then into modern history. Over time, the dynamics of the game change. So in the ancient world, everyone's running around with horsemen, you know, and like using little like paddle boats. And in the modern world, everyone's like dropping bombs on each other and using tanks, right? So does anybody have any questions on what I said so far? Which shaded area? Oh, you mean this like ominous dark cloud? Great question. I actually ask you to take a look at that. So I will actually address the weird dark cloud in a second. But does anybody else have any questions? Does you guys kind of understand what this is? You open a computer and you can play this game, this software, and you can play as a country and almost like experience human history on like a made up fantasy world. And it's also a fantasy world because this guy is playing as France and he's next to the Mayans. Like the Mayans spawn next to him, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But all right. Now let's take a look actually at the UI. Or that's the display of the program, what it looks like. UI, yeah, that means user interface. You'll hear that phrase sometimes, but that's what UI just means, user interface, which is a fancy way of saying how the program looks. So what we have on the screen here is the player is playing as France, and I know it's kind of tiny on you guys, but here it's telling us that the person's playing as France. They have a democracy as their form of government. The year is 1920 AD. They have 2,721 gold in their bank, so they have to manage the budget. They're currently researching fission, like fission technology to blow up nukes. And they currently have a tank selected, so like a tank, you know, like the turret tank, yeah. There's a mini map, so there's like a smaller version of the world map, and you can like click on it to go to different parts of the world. And we can see that the player is playing as France, and it looks as though they are currently at war with the Maya. So the player is playing as France and is invading the Maya, who are his or her neighbors. Yeah, exactly. Very good. So we can see all of his units are pink, like everything to do with France in this game is pink, and everything to do with the Maya is like this deep blue. So we can see there are some pink tanks here in the deep blue territory, right? So he has a tank positioned outside Chichen Itza, which is the Maya's capital. He's attacking one of their long bowmen. And you know, history becomes kind of funny when you have like tanks attacking dudes with bows, but these kinds of games let you do that. Also, there is this weird dark cloud that Grace pointed out. Now, this is a part of the map he hasn't discovered yet. So you don't start the game being able to see the entire world. You have to like discover parts of the world, just like a country would. Like, you know, Portugal didn't exist knowing what the entire world looks like. Portugal went out and like colonized and explored everything, right? It's the same in this game. If you've never been to an area, you have no idea what it looks like. So that's what this cloud actually represents. It's areas that you have never seen before. Now, this cloud is going to come up later, so keep track of it. But for now, we know that the human has no idea what is in that cloud. We can assume it's part of the Mayan Empire, but we don't know what's in it. We don't know if there's a city there. We don't know if there's, you know, military units stationed there. We don't know. So does anybody have any questions about what the game looks like or anything that I just mentioned? Oh yeah, they do. And you can see that he has better infrastructure. Like he has railroads everywhere. That's what these silver like spaghetti noodles look like. Those are railroads. I don't think I can, unfortunately, just because it's a slideshow, but we can see that the player has a bunch of railroads, so his infrastructure is really well developed, right? His cities look more modern. He has a very strong military compared to the Maya, right? So there's a technological difference, you know. Now, this is what the game looks like, right? And I'm gonna tell you, when I was 8 years old, I was terrible at this game, but I loved it. I loved it. It was almost like taking those atlases that I loved looking at and bringing them to life, you know? Like it would construct an entirely new world and I could explore that world for myself and I could mess with the different countries that were on the world, right? And because I loved history, it felt like I learned a lot about history from these games. So like I learned who Alexander the Great really was. I learned who, like Bismarck of Germany was. Like I learned about all these different historical figures because those figures make appearances in these games. So that is something you really need to, yeah. It does in a way, yeah.
I mean, I used to get like I used to play where in the world of the Carl San Diego.
Mhm.
That I used to love that and the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, Oregon Trail. Yeah, we played that in 4th grade.
Those are the things I used to like make learn and play for my kids.
Yeah.
It was like, you know what? You gotta find a way to make it fun. Yes.
That's what this is. That's what this is. So
But it does require
it does.
your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to use technology like this does have a profound impact on neurological development, I think. But also that's a great way of putting it. So the proper word is actually gamification. Gamification, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's gamifying something, make it a game. I think one thing that makes education very effective is when you gamify it. Like if you teach someone, I mean, you probably know this, like if you're teaching someone math or science or whatever, it's one thing to be like, you know, X plus Y equals 13. It's another to be like, yeah, it's another to be like, all right, you guys are on the X team, you guys are on the Y team. You have to come together to, and like, then they're learning the thing because their entire brain is engaging with it. So here I learned a lot about history because I was like invested in winning the game. And again, let me reinforce, I was 8 and I was terrible at this game. It would flatten me every time I played it, but I would still play it. I actually did, yeah. I would play with my friends sometimes because he also like, he was like a little 8-year-old. So 2 8-year-olds who sucked at this game playing together. I did no. I'm still bad at this. Yeah. If I were to open this right now, I'd be terrible. I promise you, it's a hard game. Yeah, it's hard. No. That's a great question. So it's you know, it's replicating human history, right? So a single. I could. I mean, actually. Well, I don't have it, but I could get it. Just give me. You know what? I think that's actually a really good idea. Let me. I have to get it. Like I have to download it, but. That's yeah. See, I should have kept that in mind. So This is, I actually have it right here. So I'm gonna begin downloading it. Maybe at the end of the session, I can show you guys. That's a really good idea. I should have thought of it. But yeah. So it's still in my library. I can like open it whenever I want, but yeah, I'm still terrible. It's really hard. Like the AI in this game, I know the AI in this game is brutal, and I'll show you why. But I really have to thank this guy because I think it's actually extremely noble. I think it's a very cool concept that he made history fun. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of like students my age, you know, I tell them like, oh, history is my favorite subject. He's like, I hate history. That is my least favorite subject because it's so boring. Stuff like this, where there's stakes involved and you're playing history, is just super cool because it makes you invested in the subject that I already love. So, like, what I'm saying is, exactly, what I'm saying is this game had way more an effect on my life than I think my uncle thought of. Like, he just gave it to me as a present when I was 8, and then now I have a degree in this stuff, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
It kind of formed you.
It did. No, seriously, it did. In a non-negligible way, it did. I played the living hell out of this game. I played the hell out of the sequel, Civilization 4. I'm not as good as the Civilization 5 and Civilization 6, but I played a lot of Civilization 3 and 4. So this is 3. 4 is an amazing game. I love that game to death. But yeah.
I honestly believe that when you kind of engage with young children and you kind of like, I believe in exposing kids to everything.
Yeah.
And let them figure out what they like or what they don't like.
Yeah. And this was, luckily enough, this is what I love.
And that's you started with as a game and look where it could be.
Yeah, right. And now, honestly, like I'm gonna be working as a software engineer, and I'm very excited for that. But if one day I can work on a game like that, like a dream job for me. Like if I could actually design something like that, yeah, it'd be excellent. There's a company in Europe that makes games like this. But anyways, so another feature of this game, another feature of Civilization 3 is this thing called the Civilopedia. So this was supposed to be like a manual. So you can open it up, and if you're confused about like a concept in the game, then you can research it here. So like, excellent analogy. So here it's like on the right side, it's a very functional use of the Civilopedia. So if you want to know everything there is to know about spearmen, which are a very like basic unit in the game. You start out the game in the ancient era, right? So spearmen you're gonna be pretty familiar with them pretty early on, right? So this is telling us a whole bunch of information about spearmen. I know the font is tiny, but I'll read it for you. So it says spearmen are the first and best defensive units of the Bronze Age. That's the summary. Very simple, straightforward. They tell you how much it costs. So it costs 20 shields. Shields are a measure of your city's like production. So like cities can build things, or they can assemble military units. So 20 shields means if your city produces 5 shields per turn, it'll take 4 turns to produce a spearman, because 5 shields times 4 turns equals 20 shields for a spearman. They have certain stats. So spearmen have 1 attack, 2 defense, and 1 movement, which means they're better at defending. I mean, which kind of makes sense. They have a big shield, right? So spearmen are better at defending things than they are at attacking things. And they can only move 1 tile per turn. And in order to build spearmen, you need bronze working. You need to know how to do bronze working. So that's a whole lot of information. And there are units in the game with like increasing complexity. Like as you get further into the ages, like, you know, industrial and modern age, you have like battleships, and you need to know how to make combustion engines. You need oil. They need like a lot of there's a lot of complicated things. But I chose this screenshot to show the more like functional use of the Civilopedia. It's just, yeah. Yeah, it's just a button. Yeah. So and it's like if I'm curious, like, oh, how does spearmen work? Then you just open this, right? Then the flip side of it though is it's also it's like a little historical compendium. So for every single entry in the Civilopedia, there was this little button here that I'm putting my cursor around called description. It's right here. So if I click on that, it flips to this. So this is actually a different entry in the Civilopedia. It's for the internet. I don't know why it chose to represent the internet as this like little thing, but it doesn't matter. But if you click on description, it flips and it gives you some historical context on that thing. And the Cyclopedia includes everything in the game from like, Catherine the Great to Spearman to bronze working. You can look at the manual entry, you can look at the historical context for all of these. So now I want you to imagine, and this is the case for all civilization games. I want you to imagine 8-year-old Augustine spending half of his time playing the game and half of the time just reading this. Yeah, exactly. So like here, I mean, look, I'll read you the internet. And this game is from 2002 or 2001, I think. So it's actually kind of dated, but the internet is a computer system architecture that has revolutionized methods of communications and commerce by allowing various computer networks around the world to connect. This is kind of funny. It is widely assumed that at least half the world's population will have some form of access to the internet by year 2010. Many experts believe that the internet will continue to dramatically transform businesses as well as society. That's kind of funny because, again, this game is from 2001, so it's making some predictions, but every single thing in the game has like a paragraph or two of historical context tied to it, and that is excellent. That's another reason why, as somebody who, like, that's what I mean. Imagine a textbook, but you can like play with the textbook. Yeah, this is exactly. It's very cool. Now, the thing is, part of making the game interesting is making the opponents difficult. Think about it. If the game were just like all the computerized agents were easy to run over, it wouldn't be much of a game. It would be too easy. On the other hand, if all of the computerized agents are way too hard, then it's going to be frustrating and not fun to play at all. So imagine if we bring it back to the chess thing from before. If you're playing chess against like a little baby computer, you're going to win every time. You're not going to want to play the game. It's stupid. But if you're playing against like the computerized equivalent of like a 70-year-old Russian chess master, you're not going to want to play the game because it'll just run over you every time. So from the game designer's perspective, this is a very delicate balancing act. They needed to create computerized opponents that were very good at giving you just the right level of difficulty. So that what I'm saying here is that artificial intelligence had a very important effect on this game. So on the left here, we have Julius Caesar of Rome. So that's what he looks like in the game. I don't know if that's really accurate, probably isn't. And we got those like, those crispy 2001 graphics, but I think he still looks pretty good. Here, he is annoyed. So each AI leader has an attitude towards the player ranging from like friendly to furious, depending on, So they can be cordial with you, they can open up trade agreements, or if you click on them and then you want to talk with them, sometimes they just refuse. They don't even talk to you. They're that mad. Yeah.
But you're kind of the outsider.
Yeah, right. They don't know what your attitude is. Yeah, so you keep them on their toes in a way. And it depends on like war too. So if you're at war with a country, they're obviously going to be furious. But if you've been trading with them for years, they're going to be cool with you. So here, Rome is already annoyed. That's probably because Rome is an expansionist country. They just want to, think about Rome historically. They loved like expanding, they loved like conquering things. So they're not going to be inclined to be nice to you. So Rome says, he says, "We greet you, friend, but we have little time. What do you want?" So Rome is already kind of aggressive. And on the right side of the screen, we actually have a few portraits. We have some connections here. So let me explain. The player is playing as Abraham Lincoln, which is at the top of this like circle, right? And he got invaded by the Koreans. So the Koreans invaded him. Yes. So Abraham Lincoln is like the leader of America. Yeah. So then, So you have the player is playing as the United States, who's led by Abraham Lincoln, and he got invaded by Korea. So the computerized Korea invaded him. Now, what the player did in return is he bribed the Inca, the Ottomans, and the Iroquois to then invade Korea. So he forked them over a bunch of money, and then all three of these countries invaded Korea in return, and they were happy to do. The AI in this game is bloodthirsty. They love invading. That's one thing about the game. And I'm gonna explain why they loved warfare so much in a moment. But this is kind of how the game kept you on your toes. These AI, the computer that you're playing against, is not here to have a picnic with you. It's here to really give you a challenge. And I'm telling you, it gave me a hell of a challenge. It still would.
Now, how come I'm not getting the timeline together?
Right. So, because
Seems like pretty.
no, yeah, exactly. It seems funny. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like a historical game, but it's also very ahistorical. So think about it already. I mean, the previous screenshot, I was showing you France bordering the Maya and then invading them. That doesn't make any sense. It's not a simulation of human history in the sense that it's like simulating. It's like fictitious. It's something like that. It's basically like it takes some of the more like, I guess, like impactful empires in human history and then pits them against each other on this made up planet, right? What's that? Do I think Putin does this? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe. But yeah, I can see why some of you guys are confused because Julius Caesar and Abraham Lincoln weren't contemporaries. No. So again, a lot of this game is fiction. Obviously, they didn't live next to each other. They didn't live at the same time. And Rome and the United States aren't even like Rome never existed at the same time as the US. But what the game does is it's like a what if, you know?
Oh, what if?
Yeah, what if? So what if the United States, Korea, the Ottoman Empire, the Aztecs, and all these other countries were thrown into a world at the same time, starting from ancient times. And each of these countries have their leader, which typically is like a really important leader with them historically. So for the United States, it's Lincoln. For the Ottomans, it's Sultan Osman. Yeah, Montezuma of the Aztecs, right? For Russia, it's Catherine the Great. For France, it's Joan of Arc, which I think is pretty cool. For Caesar. For Germany, you have Bismarck. For England, you have Elizabeth, I think. Yeah. Korea is Wang Kong, which I've actually never heard of, but yeah. Obviously, these guys aren't contemporaries. They just chose them as like almost like the spokespeople of these countries. Yeah. So this is how the game makes it interesting. It's not just there to hold your hand and show you history. It's going to pit you against AI that wants to kill you. So on that note, let me give you a real life scenario that happened when I was 8. Okay. Now, on the left, we have Joan of Arc. And on the right, we have Alexander. Now, let me explain what it is that occurred between these two. So I was 8 years old. And I was playing as Alexander the Great because he's Greek and I'm Greek. So I had to, right? And I was playing against Joan of Arc. She had gobbled up every one of her neighbors. So the world was just France and then me. So she is a cheating AI. And me, say I call her cheating. I'm not going to tell you why yet, but she does cheat. She doesn't play by the rules that I do. And I'll explain how and why in a moment. But she's a cheating AI. She controls like half of the map because she killed all of her neighbors and was looking at me next. She has a huge military. So she has a bunch of cavalry units, which are fast, and they have like rifles, so they're very effective. And she's out for blood, right? On the right, we have me. I was 8 years old, right? I was playing as Alexander the Great. And because I was 8 years old, I didn't really know how to play the game very well. So I only ever built one city. So it's kind of, I guess it's a Greek thing to have like this much land and then get invaded by like a big ass empire, because that's what happened in ancient times. But I was a tiny little speck on the map compared to Joan of Arc, who controlled like half of it. And my military wasn't nearly as robust as hers. And I have no idea what I'm doing. So I knew I can still feel the feeling of dread that I felt when I was 8. I just watched her kill everything else. Yeah, and I know like I was like friendly with her for most of the game. And I can feel I remember my 8-year-old self was like, she's going to kill me. Like, there's no way she doesn't do that like in the next 5 minutes. And then she does. She invades me. So who do you think won this war? Yeah, she did. Yeah, Joan of Arc. I got yeah. I really like asking the high schoolers this question. I like asking the high schoolers this question because what's that?
Did this X come up? How did you get?
Oh, I just put that. I just added. I just drew it there.
So this game doesn't tell you you were right or wrong.
Oh no. Well, I mean, this is I'm just telling you a story of this time I played the game. And I was annihilated by the French.
We've lost.
Oh yeah, I lost. You can lose this game pretty hard.
In a matter of,
What's that?
how long did it take for you to
It was really funny because it wasn't like I started a game and then like 10 turns in, she defeated me. It was more like I started a game and then 350 turns in, she defeated me, which made it all the more like climactic. Funnily enough, yeah, I know. She had a huge military with like cavalry armed with rifles, and I had like Greek spearmen. Weirdly enough, the spearmen held out for a really long time. Yeah, it is like Ukraine or it's like ancient times, if you guys know, like the Persians invading the Greeks. I didn't even think of that connection now. Also, I love telling this story to high schoolers because like I'll be like, okay, who do you yeah, actually, I mean more or less. I'll be like, all right, guys, who do you think won? And they'll be like, they'll think I'm being subversive. Like they'll think I'm like gonna tell them, oh, it was actually me. But no, I got completely annihilated. I was 8 years old. Now you'll notice that I called her a cheating AI. I referred to Joan of Arc as a cheater. Now, why is that the case? So you guys remember that dark cloud from before of stuff that I hadn't yet explored? The AI doesn't have it. The AI starts the game being able to see absolutely everything on the map at all times. So they, from the very beginning of the game, they don't need to explore anything. They don't need to send scouts to look. They know what's happening everywhere at all times. So this seems kind of unfair, right? Because if she has that, she's able to see, this is her cavalry, right? She's able to see that my city is undefended, right? She's able to see, and I'll tell you what each of these are. So on the top, we have a worker. So this is a unit. He can't defend himself. All he does is he builds infrastructure. He like builds roads. He chops down trees. He builds mines. He's really important to like maintaining your country. But again, because he has no combat value at all, like he can't defend himself, he's also very fragile. So at war, you want to target those guys. Because if you take away the workers, you take away the country's ability to like maintain itself. So she knew where all of my workers were, because again, she has like, what would you say, like omniscience? Yeah, when I was 8. So she knows where my workers are. She knows where my military is, and she knows where all of my resources are. So all of my iron, she can go and target it and destroy the infrastructure I have to collect it.
Sounds like an easy take.
Oh yeah, right. Civilization 3. So this seems unfair, right? Like why is it that I have to go around and explore things, but she doesn't? She's just able, she almost has like satellites in the air. She's able to see everything at all times. Doesn't that seem kind of unfair? Okay, now let me ask you guys this. I'll give you a hint as to why they did this. This game was made in 2000. Do you think the AI was terribly robust back then? No. So the AI wasn't very smart. So they needed to buff it. They needed to give it strength when going up against the player, because 2001 AI versus, I guess not an 8-year-old, but a normal player in 2001, AI is going to be stupid. AI, like we didn't yet have the technology to make the AI a very good opponent. They needed to give it a cheat in order to bring it to the human stuff. So what's interesting about this is at surface level, it seems unfair. It seems unfair that we're gifting the computer the ability to see everything at once, because normally that would be a very unfair advantage. But the truth of it is, what's that? Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there the computer might have had some little thing in it that helped it. Yeah. The chess player actually got really pissed off, like tried to like appeal the game or something. But on the surface, this seems extremely unfair. But the truth of it is, it was basically a clutch. They needed to give this to the computer because 2001 technology just wasn't that good. In other words, this is done to get on par with or potentially better than the player. In other words, the AI cheats to establish difficulty, which is essential to creating a very interesting game, interesting video game, whatever. Yeah.
Did any adults ever play this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Who was able to achieve a higher level than you?
Oh, totally. I know. I have a friend back in Illinois. Their father plays a lot of this game. Yeah. I would always play this game at the absolute lowest level difficulty possible, which I think was called like Settler or Chieftain or something. But the highest level of difficulty you can get is Deity. No. What? I was 8. And if I opened it right now and tried Deity, I would lose in like 3 turns. I'm guaranteeing you. The AI in that game, it's like throwing a toddler into like a ring full of like WWE wrestlers. Like I would.
Right now, you should have gained some.
You know what? I feel that way too, but the AI is it's too good for me. So actually, if you increase the difficulty to like Deity, like the highest level, not only is the AI smarter, but your country is worse. Like normally, if you would farm like 2 wheat from somewhere, you only get 1. Or normally, if you were to get 2 iron from somewhere, you only get 1. So all your resources are diminished. Everything is harder. But there are people who beat it. I don't know how.
So it was the program was really written very well.
Oh, yeah. Especially considering the time at which it was made. And again, it's from 2001, but I do firmly believe it looks good for its time. I think that the graphics still hold up very well. You know, it's simple. You don't have to look at it for too long to know what's happening. You know, for example, this is water. You know, this is water. This is land. This is where France is. This is where the Maya are. It's not hard to discern, right? So I'm gonna see if. Okay, the game actually did download, so I could show you guys. I think that's what I'll do. So we're at time anyway, so I'm gonna X out of here. Let's see. I will instead. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen for any of that. That's so funny. Well, that recording is stupid. Well, this will be just a podcast then. But I will record the game. So let me. It's always a little goofy when you watch it for the first time. Give it a sec.
You haven't played this to the lower level? We're not going beyond that.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I want to play it, not like get annihilated. So I'll show you. It's also not running for some reason. Let me see. Let me try properties. Just give me a second. Sometimes you gotta switch around a few little things. Let me see. Because it's an old game. So actually, this computer is so new that it's like, I think it's too new for the computer, you know? Let me see. How would I actually make it work? No, it's great. I mean, I'm very glad that I played it when I did, because I think it taught me a lot about history. And I played a lot of its sequel too. A lot of Civilization 3. That was a very important game to me as well. Let's see.
How many sequels?
So right now, the most recent one is Civilization 6. Yeah,
Bringing it up.
they do. Yeah, it is still with us.
Is there something like I believe, but I want to start this as a beginner child thing. Where would I begin? You can give you a reference, perhaps. I know it's like a movie breaking.
You mean like where could you play this game?
Anything similar to this on a low
Why can't you play Civilization One?
Civilization, they're still hard. Well, if you want, yeah, right.
You don't play any games at all? I don't have a computer or on my phone. So I mean, yeah, we have to like go to game school.
You wouldn't have to go to.
I like that.
I don't think you have to go to school, but
And download the game.
I mean, even here. Play it. That would like, if you play it, I mean, do I have to train?
no, probably not.
I just feel, you know, I mean, I just begin, obviously, but this will be with my brain.
It's very fun. I can.
Volunteer?
Mhm.
I played like Candy Crusher.
Mhm.
It's something similar to Candy Crusher, which is like big difference between your eyes going. I don't know.
I play Angry Birds, I play,
You play the Angry Birds? I see you guys make a list of this. And then
there's actually a mobile version of this. There's a mobile version of Civilization on the phone. That's fair. Okay, well, it's not launched. So Civ 3 isn't launching, but I am downloading Civilization 4, and that's gonna take like 2.5 minutes if you guys can stomach that.
Yeah, we're talking to Diane about, I have to start, where do I start? You need to get a kind of a little, room. Not a lot, what is it? What are like? What access? What are they called? Yeah, I mean, I guess, so I mean, even with Google, even if you go to Google and you games or something, it's the children.
Oh, yeah.
To the library, just, zone in and play with it. It's good, it's fun, I mean,
I'm actually here reading the instructions when you get Civilization 1
No, just bought the game for me, and it was like riding a bike.
You didn't have access to your computer to do your work, but you didn't have access. They wouldn't allow us. They would not allow us to use the internet. Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, on certain areas, they wouldn't allow you to do anything on computers, so they're like kind of lost at times. People like to hear that one. I had a million different programs, different analyzers, all kinds of stuff, where I was calculating specimens and literally you move your population of cells and you put it together, you got percentages and you analyze. I was analyzing this, but it's a different. The whole thing was so different. I didn't do any of the thinking for it. I did the putting together of it. In a different way. Yes, because I needed results and I had to make sure that all those numbers matched 100, you know what I mean? It was a different, totally different thing. Here is, to me, this is abstract. Yes. Because everything was so precise.